let's finish our extremes. What we'll do is focus on our shot camera. Now, the great part is our extremes are basically finished. Now, what we want to think about at this point is if there is any way to add a breakdown to maybe fix how we transition from one extreme to the next. Here is a great spot where we can add a breakdown where the character goes from this extreme where he hits the floor to the next extreme. You can see by looking at the right arm, there's a drastic change. So it might help for our polish pass to add a breakdown here so that we have a much better transition. So here's what we're going to do. We'll take the pose on 60. Let's shift select that frame. We'll use the middle mouse button to slide that key over to frame 70. And now what we'll do is go ahead and essentially just create an in-between here on 60. So to pose this faster, we could actually work with the pose right here on 70. Here's what we'll do. From 70, let's middle click and drag on 60. Notice how the animation does not update. So this is a way of either copying poses. We could also use this to add moving holds to drag from an area where there's a little bit of movement over to another frame, and we're essentially transferring those values to that frame we land on. So from here on 60, we can now press the K key to lock in that pose. And now what you'll see is that we see the same pose from 70 on 60. All right, so from here we'll move back to our user camera and clean this pose up. It might also be helpful to take a look at our shot camera as we do this. So basically what we're doing here is, again, just adding an in-between. So I'm going to go to the center of gravity, start there. You can see how far it's rotated down, so we'll just rotate it up a bit more. We still want the back to touch. So after it's rotated up, we'll go ahead and just drag that down. We'll go ahead and take the chest and rotate it up a bit. It's rotated back more on 70, so we'll just go ahead and rotate it up just slightly here. Thinking about follow through, we'll go ahead and take the neck control, rotate that down. Do the same thing for the head control. Great. I think the neck is rotated up a bit too much. I'll go ahead and just rotate that back, down, kind of add a slight tilt to the head. Looking at the left arm, let's go ahead and bring it closer to the character's face. So it's going to swoop past his face. And then we can go ahead and fix the wrist, twisting that in. Rotating it back slightly for a bit of drag. Great. Let's take a look at the rest of the arm. Almost want that closer to the creature's face. So I'll go ahead and actually rotate the wrist up a bit more. Then we can take the elbow. Let's go ahead and find that. It's way up here. Let's go ahead and fix the pose here. Just kind of dragging that elbow down just a bit. And then we'll want to take the clavicle and drop that as well, given the position of the arm. It's kind of broken, so we just want to drag that down. Beautiful. So this is really coming together. Let's go ahead and grab the right arm. And we're, again, creating an in-between. So we'll want to slide that so it's closer to the right thigh. I'll go ahead and just lift the wrist up and point it back for some drag. Then we can take the elbow and swing that around so it's touching the surface. Great, I'll go to the control object again and kind of just bring that back so it's not too close to the character's body. We'll go to the arm control and bring that up. And then we can take the wrist and use that to drop that down a bit. Just rotate it down just slightly. And then just fix the orientation so the wrist isn't broken. All right, great. Looking at the clavicle, it's definitely broken here, so we're going to want to drop that. Much better. Again, considering drag, we can go in and tweak the fingers at this point. rotating them down in the z-axis a bit, and maybe offsetting a few poses, just rotating the index up, maybe going to the midsection of that index finger, bringing that up a bit, doing the same thing for the mid finger, just bringing that up and doing the same thing for the end. Great. We can consider doing that for the left hand. I'll go ahead and deselect the arm control, so we're just grabbing the index through pinky, and we'll go ahead and curl the fingers in a bit. Maybe spread them out a bit more, because they seem too close right now. Great. You can go to the thumb, that left hand, and drop that. Let's take a look at the thumb on the right hand. We might want to rotate that in closer to the palm, and then we can rotate the end out. Very nice. So as we start to scrub through, here's what we end up with, a nice in-between. We will want to make sure that the character slides on this pose, so we don't want to forget about that. But this is coming together very well. Now remember, the feet are going to hit, so we're also preparing for that. Let's go ahead and take the left leg. Remember, it's starting to squash in at this point. I'm actually going to go ahead and undo that pose because I grabbed one of the foot controls, so we want to grab that leg control. Just kind of drop that a bit. And then go ahead and rotate that ankle down. Very nice. And then we want to stretch this right leg out a bit more. And then go ahead and rotate the ankle down for some follow through here. And I might go back to the left ankle and have that point down a bit for a more interesting angle to exaggerate the pose some. We always want to think about exaggeration because we need to loosen up our characters. If we don't add even a slight amount of exaggeration, we might run into a problem where they seem way too rigid. Happens way too often, so we just want to be very careful about that. All right, great. So for this right leg, I might go ahead and take the leg up a bit more and then rotate the ankle down for more interesting pose, for again more exaggeration. Great. All right, so this is looking nice. So now we need to think about having the creature slide. So let's go ahead and go to frame 50. We'll grab all of the controls we need to translate the creature with. The arms, the legs, the elbows, the knees, and the center of gravity. Let's slide him closer to the rock on 50. Then on 60, he's going to slide, but we just need to slide him a little bit closer to the rock so that we have a nice transition from 50 to 70. So he hits, slides on 60, then on 70. I might go to 60 and bring him a little bit further away from the rock. Great. So there's what we end up with. A really nice breakdown to fix our flow. All right, the last pose we need is one where the creature kind of settles. We don't want him to just come to a stop here. The body is still going to shift as it kind of catches up to this last pose. So thinking about this, we know that the body is slid over to our left. So what that means is when we get to 90, after the body is stopped, to settle in, we're going to want things to shift in the opposite direction. So when it comes to the left shoulder here, we want that to drop down and move closer to the direction of the rock. You get where we're going with that. We just want it to kind of settle in. So let's go ahead and think about that for the chest. You can see that it's going to twist around. So now we need it to twist in the opposite direction to loosen up the character a bit. And not much. It should be very subtle. And we should also think about follow through here as well. So as that chest is being shifted over, for the neck and head, we could actually have them kind of drop a bit more for pull. So here's what we end up with. Great. So that's looking nice. Let's think about the hands. So here, we want to keep in mind friction. So for that right hand, you can see how it's hit the floor. What we can do here is have the hand translate back a bit in the X and out in the Z, but then we'll take the wrist and rotate that upward because of friction. It's going to be a little bit of pull there, and that's what we have in that pose now. Now for the left hand, with the fingers contacting the floor the way they are, it's not going to be as much friction here. So what we can do is go ahead and take the wrist and go ahead and rotate that away from the character, and still go ahead and have that translate back and out in the X and Z. Beautiful. So here's what we end up with there. Very exciting. For the legs, just about done. Let's go ahead and grab the left leg. So once that hits, again, it's going to slide back on 90 and away from the body and the Z-axis, but thinking about friction, we can go ahead and take the ankle and rotate that closer into the body. Not much, it should be subtle. And then for the right leg, again, we'll drag that back and away from the creature, this time in the opposite direction that we translated the left leg in the Z-axis. Again, we'll rotate the ankle up here slightly. Beautiful. Now looking at the hips, we need to think about them as well. Taking a look at how the legs are shifting. Go ahead and rotate the hips back to loosen them up a bit. Great. So that looks nice. I'd almost want to go ahead and take the chest and make sure it doesn't rotate too much, because I don't want the hips and the chest to rotate with the same amount. So we just want to break up that rhythm a bit. So I've just rotated the chest down just slightly, just so it shifts a little bit, but not much. And this is what we end up with. Let's go ahead and take a look at things from our shot camera. And we can go ahead and scrub through the animation. We could also play back, even though we know that the timing has not been adjusted yet. We're just taking a look at our poses, our storytelling poses, which is really exciting. Feel free to turn on looping here on our playback controls. Just take a look. So we have sure learned a lot about our blocking pass. Remember, when you're ready to start an animation, consider those 3 steps we explored earlier on of knowing your story, finding reference, and then making sure you have your start and end so that you can make sure that your character remains framed properly. Also, remember to thumbnail and to come up with several thumbnails, not just one, but just several ideas so you could choose the best for your project. You could also get your team involved and get their opinion on the poses that you choose, just to make it more fun. And then we want to think about our silhouette and make sure that we pose to our shot camera, because that's what counts the most. That's what the viewer will see through. So we want to make sure things are very exciting here, but we also want to keep the creature balanced in all views. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So we sure had a lot of fun. So from there, once you're ready, you can now move on to animation polishing techniques and learn some really fun techniques in that tutorial.